The morning bell echoed through Jefferson High School, filling the corridors with chatter and the squeak of sneakers against polished floors. Teachers rushed to their classrooms, students shuffled in half awake, and the hum of another school day began. Down at the end of the hallway, Samuel Brooks, the school janitor, quietly pushed his cleaning cart. He was in his late 50s, tall but slightly hunched from years of hard work. His gray uniform was neat, his movements slow but steady. Every morning he arrived before sunrise to make sure the school was spotless before anyone walked in. Most people barely noticed him. Some smiled politely, others walked past as if he didn't exist. But Samuel didn't mind. He loved this place. Every brick, every window, every hallway. Because he knew it better than anyone else. As he mopped near the staff lounge, the door swung open. Out stepped Ms. Clara Jennings, one of the newest teachers at the school. Young, confident, sharply dressed, she had a reputation for being ambitious, maybe a little too much. She frowned as she nearly stepped on the "Caution Wet Floor" sign. "Oh, come on," she muttered. "Do you have to do this now? Some of us have work to do." Samuel stopped, looked up, and gave her a small, patient smile. "Morning, ma'am. The floor's just about done. Won't take a minute." Clara sighed dramatically. "Well, try not to block the doorway next time. This isn't exactly the best impression to give students, you know?" Samuel nodded quietly and stepped aside, still polite. "Yes, ma'am. Sorry for the inconvenience." She brushed past him, heels clicking sharply against the freshly cleaned tiles. "Honestly," she said under her breath, "I don't understand why the school hires people who don't know how to stay out of the way." Samuel said nothing. He simply went back to work, his mop gliding smoothly across the floor. But his eyes, kind, weathered eyes, held a flicker of something deeper. Not anger, not even hurt, just quiet disappointment. Later that morning, Clara walked into the teacher's lounge, chatting with another staff member. "The janitor almost tripped me earlier," she said with a laugh. "Someone needs to tell him this isn't his personal workspace." Her colleague, Mr. Lewis, raised an eyebrow. "You mean Sam? He's been here longer than anyone. Knows the school like the back of his hand." Clara shrugged. "Yeah, well, maybe he should learn some manners. Honestly, the man acts like he owns the place." Mr. Lewis just smiled faintly. "You'd be surprised," he said softly. "In a way, he kind of does." Clara didn't understand what he meant. She just rolled her eyes and walked away, muttering about lazy staff. Meanwhile, Samuel continued his quiet routine, fixing light bulbs, wiping desks, cleaning chalk dust from the floor. When no one was looking, he paused near the main entrance and ran his hand over the old marble plaque by the door. It read, "Jefferson High School, built 1997, designed by S. Brooks." He smiled faintly, his fingers tracing his own name carved into the stone. No one ever noticed it anymore. But he did, every single day. And soon, Ms. Jennings would learn exactly who the janitor she insulted really was. The next day, the school buzzed with energy. Ms. Jennings walked briskly through the halls, clutching a stack of essays. She was still frustrated from the day before. Her students hadn't performed well on a test, and she blamed their lack of discipline. When she saw Samuel polishing the trophy case outside the main office, her irritation found a target. "Could you not do that right now?" she snapped. "I have a meeting here in 5 minutes, and the smell of cleaner gives me a headache." Samuel turned, polite as ever. "Of course, ma'am. I'll finish later." He began to gather his things, but she wasn't done. "You know, some of us have degrees," she said coldly. "We worked hard to get where we are. You could try to be a little more professional." Samuel looked at her, eyes calm. "Professionalism isn't about a title, ma'am," he said softly. "It's about how you treat people." That only made her bristle. "I don't need a lecture from someone who mops floors," she said sharply, and walked off. That afternoon, during her free period, Clara went to the principal's office to drop off paperwork. The principal, Mr. Green, was on the phone, gesturing for her to wait. While she stood there, her eyes fell on a framed newspaper clipping on the wall. The headline read, "Local Architect Builds School for Underserved Communities." There was a photo, a younger man in a suit standing proudly in front of the newly finished Jefferson High School. The name beneath the photo made her pause. Samuel Brooks, architect. She blinked, leaned closer. Could it be the same Samuel? No, that couldn't be right. The janitor? An architect? Before she could think further, Mr. Green hung up and noticed her staring. "Oh, that was a big day," he said warmly. "The man in that picture, Sam Brooks, designed this school himself. He used to be a respected architect, lost his firm after his wife got sick, spent everything on her medical bills, but when we offered him a job here as a custodian, he took it without hesitation. Said he wanted to keep taking care of the place he built." Clara stood frozen. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest as the truth sank in. The man she had dismissed, the one she had scolded for being unprofessional, had built the very walls around her. The floor she'd walked on, the classroom she'd taught in, the halls she'd hurried through, all of it had come from his hands, his vision, his sacrifice. That evening, when the last bell rang and the halls emptied, Clara lingered near the entrance. She found Samuel mopping quietly as usual. The sight of him, patient, steady, humble, felt suddenly different. She approached slowly, her voice unsteady. "Mr. Brooks," she said softly. He looked up and smiled faintly. "Yes, ma'am?" She hesitated, the words catching in her throat. I saw the article in the principal's office." Her eyes lowered. "You built this school." Samuel gave a small nod. "A long time ago," he said simply. "It was my way of giving back." Clara swallowed hard. Shame washed over her. "I'm so sorry for the way I spoke to you. I didn't know." Samuel wiped his hands on a cloth and looked at her kindly. "Knowing isn't what matters, ma'am. Respect shouldn't depend on that." His words hit her deeper than any reprimand ever could. In that moment, Clara realized that real education wasn't just what happened inside the classroom. Sometimes the greatest teacher was the quietest person in the hallway, the one everyone overlooked. The following day, Ms. Jennings couldn't stop thinking about what she'd learned. The image of Samuel Brooks, the architect, the builder, the man she had scolded, wouldn't leave her mind. She spent her morning class distracted, her words stumbling as she tried to teach. Her students noticed the change. "Miss J, you okay?" one of them asked. "You seem different." She forced a smile. "Just thinking," she said softly, "about how sometimes we don't really see the people around us." When the bell rang, she went to the library, searching through old yearbooks and local news archives. Each page seemed to tell another piece of Samuel's story: the groundbreaking ceremony, photos of him in a hard hat surrounded by smiling kids, a headline reading, "Local architect donates designs to help build new school." The more she read, the heavier her guilt became. She had walked these halls every day, completely unaware that the man polishing the floors had once designed them. That afternoon, she found him in the gymnasium, fixing a broken light. "Mr. Brooks," she began, her voice low, "can I ask you something?" He looked down from the ladder, smiling faintly. "Sure, ma'am. Why do you still work here?" she asked. "You could have gone anywhere, found another firm, maybe started over." He came down slowly, setting the wrench aside. "When I built this place," he said, "I wanted it to be more than just a building. I wanted it to be a place where kids from all backgrounds could learn something that lasts. My wife used to say, 'Education builds people the way architects build walls.' After she passed, I didn't have much left. But this school, these walls, still gave me purpose. So, I stayed." Clara swallowed hard, her eyes stinging. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I'm sorry for how I spoke to you. Truly." Samuel nodded gently. "You weren't the first, ma'am, and you won't be the last. People see what they expect to see. But you can change that if you want to." The next week, Clara began to change. She smiled at the janitors, thanked the cafeteria staff, listened more to her students. She even invited Samuel to her homeroom class to talk about architecture and community. The students loved him instantly, his stories, his humor, his quiet wisdom. He showed them blueprints of the school and told them, "Everything you see around you began as a sketch, just lines on paper. But every great thing starts that way. Someone believes it's worth building." As Clara watched her students listen in awe, she realized something profound. She had spent years chasing status, trying to appear successful, while Samuel had quietly built something that would outlast them all. For the first time, she understood what true success meant, not in titles or paychecks, but in legacy and kindness. That evening, when Samuel finished his shift, he found a small envelope taped to his locker. Inside was a handwritten note. Thank you for building this school and for rebuilding my perspective. Beneath it was a drawing signed by her students. A picture of the school, with Samuel standing proudly in front, smiling. For the first time in years, he allowed himself a full, genuine smile. He folded the note carefully, slipped it into his pocket, and whispered to himself, "Guess I did build something after all." A few months passed, and the seasons began to change. The leaves outside Jefferson High turned golden and fell across the front lawn Samuel had helped design decades ago. Inside, the rhythm of the school went on. Bells, chatter, lessons, laughter echoing through the halls. But something had changed within those walls. The people had begun to notice him. Teachers who once walked past now greeted Samuel by name. Students waved when he passed their classrooms. They didn't just see a janitor anymore, they saw the man who built their school. Ms. Jennings had changed the most. She found herself spending time with Samuel between classes, listening to his stories. He told her how, when the school was first built, he used bricks from an old factory to save costs, and how he'd personally designed the wide hallways so students wouldn't feel trapped in tight spaces. Everything in the building, down to the light through the windows, had a purpose. One afternoon, Clara and Samuel stood outside near the main entrance as he replaced a damaged flagpole bracket. "You really thought about everything," she said, watching him work. "You didn't just build a school. You built a place that feels alive." Samuel smiled. "Buildings are like people, Ms. Jennings. They reflect the care that goes into them. You build them with respect, they stand tall." She nodded quietly. "I used to think respect had to be earned with status. Now I realize it's something you give because everyone deserves it." Samuel chuckled softly. "That's a good lesson to teach your students." Later that week, the school hosted its annual Founders' Day Assembly, a tradition meant to honor the people who had made the school possible. Clara approached the principal with an idea. "This year," she said, "we should honor someone who's been here all along but never truly recognized." Mr. Green smiled knowingly. "You're talking about Sam, aren't you?" She nodded. It's time the students and staff knew the full story. The day of the assembly came. The gymnasium was packed. Students in neat rows, teachers on the bleachers, the air buzzing with curiosity. Samuel was standing off to the side, unaware of what was about to happen. He thought he was there to help clean up after the event. The principal stepped up to the microphone. "Every year," he began, "we celebrate those who've helped build Jefferson High into what it is today. But today, we want to honor someone who quite literally built it." Samuel frowned slightly, confused, as murmurs rippled through the crowd. Green continued, "This man designed our school, devoted his life to keeping it strong, and showed us that dignity isn't about titles, it's about character. Please join me in recognizing Mr. Samuel Brooks." The gym erupted in applause. Hundreds of students stood, clapping and cheering. Some chanted his name. Samuel's eyes widened, his hand instinctively going to his chest. Ms. Jennings came forward, holding a framed plaque. "For the man who built our walls and strengthened our spirit," it read. She handed it to him, tears shining in her eyes. "You taught us what it really means to build something that lasts." Samuel looked out at the crowd. Young faces, bright smiles, people he had once walked past unseen. He felt a warmth rise in his chest, the kind that only comes when you realize your life has truly mattered. When the applause finally quieted, he stepped up to the microphone, voice trembling just a little. "I'm not used to speeches," he said with a shy smile, and the crowd laughed softly. "I built this school a long time ago, but you're the ones building it now. Every time you show kindness, every time you learn something new, every time you help each other. That's what really makes these walls stand." The gym filled again with applause, louder than before. Clara clapped until her hands ached, her heart full. That night, as Samuel locked up the school, he paused at the front door and looked at the plaque by the entrance, the same one he touched every morning. This time, he wasn't alone in remembering. The world finally saw what he had built, and for the first time, he whispered not with quiet pride, but with peace, "I didn't just build a school. I built a home." Winter came early that year. Snow dusted the roof of Jefferson High, gathering in soft piles along the windowsills, Samuel himself had once measured and designed. Inside, the building felt warm and alive, the laughter of students echoing off the walls, the hum of heaters, the faint scent of chalk and coffee drifting through the halls. It was a place full of life, and Samuel felt it in his bones every day. One morning before sunrise, Samuel walked through the empty corridors the way he always did. His steps echoed gently on the polished floors. He ran a hand along the lockers, checked the thermostats, made sure everything was ready for another day. These little rituals brought him peace. The building had become part of his heartbeat, and he, a quiet guardian of its spirit. At 7 o'clock, Miss Jennings found him in the atrium, adjusting the garland around the school's Christmas tree. "Mr. Brooks," she said with a smile, "you beat me here again." He chuckled. "Old habits, ma'am. I like to see the school wake up." She watched him step back and look at the tree, his eyes filled with the same care he gave to everything. "You know," she said softly, "it feels different here now. The students talk about you all the time. They notice things they never used to. How clean the halls are, how bright the rooms feel. You've changed how people see this place." Samuel shook his head modestly. "Maybe they just started seeing what was already there." He smiled. "That's the funny thing about people. Sometimes they don't need new walls, just new eyes." The day passed in a blur of lessons, laughter, and light snow falling outside the windows. Near the end of the school day, the intercom crackled. Mr. Green's voice came through, warm and steady. "Attention, everyone. Please join us in the courtyard after dismissal. We have a small surprise." When the final bell rang, the students poured out, bundled in coats and scarves. In the courtyard, a crowd gathered around something covered by a large white sheet. Samuel stood near the back, curious. "Ms. Jennings caught his sleeve. "You might want to be up front for this one," she said, smiling. Mr. Green stepped forward to speak. "Today, we dedicate this to the man who gave this school its heart. Not through money, not through titles, but through love, hard work, and humility." He nodded toward Ms. Jennings, who gently pulled the sheet away. Beneath it stood a bronze plaque, mounted on a stone base, shining in the winter light. The inscription read, "In honor of Samuel Brooks, architect, caretaker, teacher of integrity." He didn't just build this school. He built our foundation. The crowd erupted in applause, and students began chanting his name again, their voices echoing through the courtyard. Samuel's eyes filled with tears. He took a slow breath, overwhelmed, and looked around at the faces, the children, the teachers, the community he'd helped shape without even realizing it. When the noise faded, he stepped forward and rested his hand gently on the plaque. "Thank you," he said softly. "I built these walls to hold classrooms, but you turned them into something far greater, a place that builds people." He looked up at the sky, snowflakes landing on his coat. "That's all I ever hoped for." After the ceremony, as the sun set behind the school, Samuel stayed behind for a while, sweeping snow from the steps. Miss Jennings joined him, handing him a thermos of hot coffee. "You know," she said, "I used to think being a teacher meant shaping minds. But you taught me something else. It's also about shaping hearts." Samuel smiled. "Then I guess we both built something together." She laughed softly, and they stood in companionable silence as the lights from the school glowed behind them. That night, when Samuel finally left, he turned back once more to look at the building, its windows gleaming like stars in the cold. He felt no pride, only peace. He had built this school with bricks and dreams, but it was love, humility, and forgiveness that had made it last. And as he walked home through the falling snow, he whispered with quiet gratitude, "I built more than walls. I built a family."